This podcast may contain explicit language. And for an hour, I'm the best actress in the world and the best fuck in the world. Klute is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
Tonight, for our 317th episode, we discuss Klute from 1971, celebrating its 55th anniversary. Directed by Alan J. Pakula, written by Andy Lewis and Dave Lewis, brothers Lewis, I suppose. Cinematography by Gordon Willis, music by Michael Small, editing by Carl Lerner, starring Jane Fonda as Bree Daniels, Donald Sutherland as John Klute, Charles Chiaffi as Peter Cable, Roy Scheider as Frank Lagorin, Dorothy Tristan as Arlen Page, Rita Gam as Trina, Nathan George as Trask, Vivian Nathan as the psychiatrist, Robert Milley as Tom Gruneman, Morris Strasberg as Mr. Goldfarb, and Gene Stapleton as Goldfarb's secretary. Background for the movie: Klute was released on June 23, 1971. On a budget of $2.5 million, Klute would earn roughly $12.5 million worldwide and finish number 12 at the box office for 1971. Critics were generally positive about the film overall, especially for the two lead performances by Fonda and Sutherland, and the film would be nominated for 2 Oscars, Original Screenplay for the Lewises, and winning Best Actress for Jane Fonda. It is the first installment of what has informally come to be known as Pakula's Paranoia trilogy, followed by The Parallax View from 1974 and All the President's Men from 1976, all films dealing with themes of paranoia, conspiracies, and surveillance. Klute currently holds a 92% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, an 81 score on Metacritic, and a 3.9 out of 5 on Letterboxd. However, we cannot do this by ourselves, so we bring in our returning celebrity guest. Making his third appearance on the show to date, a writer and film commentator and a CLP contributor, it's the Music City Matchpoint Maestro. Please welcome back.
What's up? Howdy from Nashville. That's what I should say.
Howdy.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day, I was watching a movie with Southern accents the other day, and I was just like ripping them apart in my head. I was like, I really don't have much to go on. Like, I don't have much of an accent, but I feel like I've heard them for so long in my life, I can really tear them down when I hear bad ones. And I'm looking at Charlie Hunnam in Cold Mountain. That was awful.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're really bad or really caricaturized, I mean, you could probably tell. But yes, I think us Yankees have less of an ear for it than you would.
Well, the one that I've heard gets a lot of criticism lately that I do take issue with is people were mad about Margaret Qualley in Ethan Coen's Driveway Dolls, which she is doing a very big performance with a big accent. But I was like, people who criticize that have not been to Kentucky enough. Like, I've heard that voice before. I know that person. So I was like, she's exaggerated, but it's not bad. I don't know. There's a difference.
Well, I suppose in a larger performance like that, having a larger accent does make a little bit more sense. And the Coens are very much over-accentuating accents. Or shall we bring up the Minnesota Nice?
Oh, right. Yeah.
God, they're he.
Yeah, the old Fargo situation.
Yeah.
My wife was so pissed off.
Was she?
Still is.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's a great film. That being said, you haven't been back with us since you visited us for Nashville last year. So what have you been up to?
Not much. I'm still kind of just hanging around film Twitter. Like, a lot of my friends, like you guys have podcasts. I'll be on when they need somebody. And I'm just like, basically what I do is I see everything and then I argue with my friends in group chats about the movies. That's kind of what I do, but not much else. I play tennis. That's hence the match point comment, which I appreciate. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sounds good.
Film Twitter lurker, I guess. Or occasional posts about The Simpsons as well, if you want
That's
those.
True. That is
That's
true.
good to
You
follow,
have said that on many occasions, and anyone who knows you in our private Discord for all the CLP contributors can attest to that as well. You are the person with the most likely Simpsons meme that will correspond to that exact moment. Like, if there was an award for it, you would have it.
It's a gift. What can I say?
But that being said, let's dive into the movie for this evening. Now, normally we start with our relationships to this film, but Dad, you and I have not seen this film before this week. Scott, had you seen the film at all prior to this week?
I had not. I'd heard about it my whole life, but yeah, I'd never seen it. This was the first time, so I was glad to get to watch it.
So 3 newbies, and frankly put, I think now this is like the 3rd or 4th different movie that I've watched for the first time in a short period of time. So last week we did Ace in the Hole, which I had never seen before. Then we did, for class yesterday, a legal thriller that I had never seen called Civil Action with John Travolta.
I remember that movie, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then over the weekend, I finally saw Charade, which I needed an excuse for, but I had a film discussion, a separate film discussion group that I was going to that just started up here in Madison, and they were discussing that film. So I'm like, yeah, let's go to that. And I like the excuse because I've had Charade on my list for a while. So I'm really diving into first watches recently over the last week or so, but very much enjoyed this. So we'll kind of go around with some initial reactions here. Dad, what did you feel about the film?
To be perfectly honest, I mean, I liked the film. There were some moments where it kind of dragged. So I think the direction was a little bit inconsistent at times. I don't know if it was on purpose that he was trying to slow the tempo down so that it made you feel more uncomfortable, which is a possibility. But I think at times, especially in the middle, it got a little too slow and it kind of lost your interest a little bit. But for the most part, I thought it was a well-done film, and I really liked Jane Fonda's performance, and I think Donald Sutherland's performance, as with most of Donald Sutherland's performances, did not really impress the critics, which I don't understand. I guess maybe the point is it would have been real easy for him to be over the top with that character, to make it a caricature, and he played it very subtle and to the point so that it was a very good performance. So I liked the performances and I liked most of the film.
I would say the reason you can overlook him in this film is if the film overall doesn't go to your taste, and I'm not sure that this film is necessarily for everybody. It is for me because I like kind of these 70s psychological thrillers, but the easy way to put a label on it is Jane Fonda's got the much showier performance on the page as it's written, and Sutherland has to be much more subtle, withdrawn, kind of in a way that he normally was. But to a degree, she had the quote-unquote transformative performance, and he did not. But Scott, what did you feel about the film?
Yeah, I liked it too. I would say liked, didn't love. I think I really feel something that Dana said. The way that it's made by Pakula and like the way it starts, it just throws you into like that dinner scene, and then you find out that Tom is missing. It's like the movie never lets you get comfortable or feel comfortable at all. So it's like that unease. I mean, the biggest part of that is the music. The music really keeps you on edge or just makes you feel like eerie and uncomfortable. But I kind of agree with Dana that despite, I like that vibe of the movie and the feeling, but I did find it a little slow at parts. Kind of like Dana was saying. I thought Donald Sutherland was great. I always love him, but I thought he was great. I'm just like, man, we used to let actors look like Donald Sutherland and be the leads of movies. I miss that. He's got such his face has such character to it. You're just like, oh yeah, he's awesome. Yes, very understated. I think that's a good balance for. Actually, I don't think Jane Fonda is overstated. I just think they're just two sides of a coin, kind of like she can't believe that he loves her. And you kind of need to believe that because like the part about the movie that I responded to or like it kind of resonated with me is the way that she expresses that she feels the need to self-sabotage and she doesn't know why and wishes she could stop, but she can't. That hit me. I was like, oh yeah, it felt like it felt realistic to me, and it felt like, yeah, I could identify with it in a way. So
I don't know if I have quite the same problems that both of you did. I think there's a period after the initial few moments, like the first 10 minutes of the movie where it throws you in, it gives you what the central question is that we're supposed to be answering, what happened to Tom Gruneman. And once that setup is kind of done, it takes a little bit of its time to build up back to something. But outside of that, from about, I would say maybe a half an hour to 40 minutes into the movie, I really didn't have too many problems with paying attention to it because we were still focused on that central question. The one thing that I guess I would have some pushback on the writing, and it may just be because it felt like it was a central part of what the movie was about, but it felt like they found it during the filming as opposed to the writing, was the relationship aspect. Why exactly do these two people come together? Why is he, I guess, fostering this relationship? I can understand where she's coming from, and I think the therapy scenes that I'm aware of were very much ad-libbed by Jane Fonda, so it wasn't part of the original script per se, but it helps to bring together a lot of different ideas that I'm going to bring up here when we get to kind of what the film is about and how this relationship kind of manifests as the secondary, or I guess becomes the primary storyline by the end, I would say.
Isn't his character really, I mean, he's a police officer, etc. Isn't his character really about looking for people to protect?
I can't disagree with that. I think that's an interesting way to portray the police at this point in time in cinema history, particularly like in a larger city. The 70s was not very friendly to cops, per se.
Yeah, but he wasn't from New York. He wasn't from Philadelphia. He was from rural Pennsylvania. And I think that that's part of it, is he saw this very wounded person and he thought he could protect her.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I can't disagree. I'm just, it's a forgiving or an optimistic take that I don't find too often in a lot of 70s movies. I mean, this is the same year as The French Connection.
Yeah.
And that kind of feels like it bled through to how we perceived police until probably the Reagan era, where we kind of redefined some of the police and the military and some of these other quote-unquote institutions that had been undercut by liberalism in America. You know.
That the thing you said about Donna Sutherland, like looking for somebody to protect, yeah, it is interesting, and that is like a theme throughout the movie. Like she says at one point, like a line she has is like, it's so silly to think somebody else can help another person. Like to look outward to someone else to help you with your situation is like, that's kind of what, yeah, he's almost trying to offer that to her. And she's like, I can't accept that. Like, please stop. And he's like, no.
Now, I think the biggest topic to tackle about the film outside of the film structure or film story itself is the awards attention. So let's go right at it. Is Fonda's performance here Oscar worthy?
Yes.
Maybe not. We're not going to be like one other show that's going to compare the entire year. Like, I'm not asking you to compare everybody in 1971 here, but just, do you see it as something that was worthy of being nominated and potentially winning?
Yes, and the fact that you told me that she ad-libbed those therapy scenes makes me think it even more, because those are my favorite scenes in the movie, the therapy scenes, and I think they're, to be honest, the best written scenes in the movie. So the fact that she was coming up with those is like even more incredible. Yeah. But
so additionally to that, I'll add on, and I don't think that I put this in the Did You Know section, so I may be preempting myself a little bit. But there's two additional pieces that she requested as part of that. One, they do the therapy at the very end of the film because she wanted to fully understand the character before she starts to get into the mind. And the therapist was originally written as a man, but thought that this character wouldn't open up to a man, so she had it changed to a female therapist.
That's that's smart. Man.
Go ahead. And yes, I think it's probably one of the better performances. of an actress in that era.
Okay.
Because it was subtle. She was not, or she was, it would have been real easy to fall into the trope of she's coming around or she's looking for the hero or whatever. She maintained her integrity as being aloof and distant throughout, in all of her mannerisms, how she presented herself. She was really struggling with what she really wanted out of this. And I think it comes through and through the acting throughout the film that this was a real yin and yang for her, where she has a very conflicted set of feelings.
I have such a hard time sometimes with these kinds of performances, being able to truly judge them. It's part of the reason that I even bring the question up in the first place, is to show whether am I completely off base and not really feeling anything for this performance, or is it something that maybe I was onto? Last week we talked a lot about Kirk Douglas's performance in Ace in the Hole, and I said that was an excellent performance, that I think it was his best, at least that I've seen up to this point. But on a contrast, I don't know, for whatever reason, I can respect her performance, but there was nothing that like really bowled me over and said, absolutely, this is 100% like a great, great performance. But I have no reason to discount it either. The performance was solid. I bought her as the character. In no way am I trying to discredit her. I'm just saying I have maybe maybe it's a character flaw in truly being able to judge what is true acting and what isn't.
Well, in this particular case, she gave equal parts to both being intelligent and self-reflective, and at the same time self-destructing.
Well, yeah, I think the way that she gravitates between wanting a different type of relationship, wanting out of this world in many different facets, but then easily falling back into it. She's at the precipice of going back to her pimp. And it's only through him basically beating the shit out of Roy Scheider does she not do it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I like about her in general as an actress is I feel like it's hard sometimes for actors to convey intelligence. Like, you can always kind of see her thinking and like working through stuff in her head. And I mean that like in the therapy stuff, but then also she's great in the scene with the John early in the movie. Like, she's really good when she's negotiating with him about what they're going to do. Like, they kind of have to show us that part of her life for the whole thing to work. And she's very convincing and great in that. I feel like it's good to see like both sides of it. But the one thing I wanted to say was 2 years before this, she was nominated, and I don't know how close she was to winning for They Shoot Horses, Don't They? Which is a great, like all-time great performance to me. So I bet it was kind of like one of those things where like, well, she was great 2 years ago. She's great in this. Like, it's time. I think she's deserving for both, but and it's so different from the performance in They Shoot Horses, Don't They? That it's like, you can see the range there.
Much different than Barbarella.
Yeah, and Cat Ballou.
Yeah. And because she's been such a pop in, pop out at very strategic times, been on television kind of actress, at least in my lifetime, she doesn't have the same prowess, I guess, or notoriety, the name recognition, even though I think a lot of people know who she is, but it's just not, she's not Meryl Streep. It's hard to remember sometimes that she's a dual Oscar-winning actress and she's only a Grammy short of an EGOT. Like, she's got the credentials. The one scene where I will truly say that, like, from my own perspective, I felt she was the most convincing to me was the scene where she initially comes to Donald Sutherland and sleeps with him and, like, kind of traps him. And I'm like, oh, shit, she is sinister. That was, like, the one moment where it really felt like there was a back and forth. Like, he was not in total control of everything in the movie. He couldn't just continually dismiss her. There was a push and pull from the two primary characters. Now, let's move then to Donald Sutherland. We had talked about it before. Dad, you're on the warpath basically since Donald Sutherland passed away. And then since then, we've covered Ordinary People and I think at least one other Donald Sutherland movie was MASH, I think it was.
Yes.
But you're on the warpath for getting Donald Sutherland recognized, at least posthumously, in a way he wasn't, I guess, in life. I felt he was really good in this.
Yes, I did too. And I find it ironic that it's her dad who probably also... She had 2 Oscars before he ever got one, and he's supposedly a Hollywood icon. So many of his performances were understated and dismissed. And I think that Donald Sutherland and Henry Fonda both had the same problem, which is they were so good at playing normal that nobody realized that that's real acting.
That's a good point. Donald Sutherland, yeah, very much in the Henry Fonda tradition of that, where it's like the performance is so good, but the Academy for some reason is blind to like non-flashy. They just can't see it. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, they want somebody with a disability or a weird accent or
screaming.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah, a guy who slow talks and is in just a low, commanding voice throughout the movie and never really yells or raises his voice in any way. Probably not going to get a lot of attention, but I think he's incredibly solid in this movie. Do I think it's his best performance? No, I still think that's Ordinary People. I think he is much more of an emotional enigma in that movie where he's just gravitating between so many different things, and he is equal parts to what makes that movie good, in my opinion, than he maybe is in this movie. But he's kind of being similar to the Gary Cooper, Henry Fonda, certain strong silent types in this movie. And he has to be, because at the center of it, somebody has to feel like they're in control, even when all of this other stuff is going on around it. There are so many people that are caught up in this cycle of trauma and abuse throughout the movie, and he's not. He is the outsider. He is the ray of light.
Am I mistaken, or like he was the only one not nominated for Ordinary People, which is insane?
Yep.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah,
and he was
crazy.
the best performance out of all of them.
Yeah.
I don't think
great.
he was nominated once. I think he got a Lifetime Achievement from something, but it might not have been the Oscars. And he was never nominated for an Oscar.
He got a Lifetime Achievement from the Academy. And I love his acceptance speech, which is, I really don't deserve this, but I have arthritis too, and I don't deserve that either.
That's funny. His 70s, yeah, is incredible. I mean, I love Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think he's great in that. And then Don't Look Now, he's great. Yeah, he's just great in everything in the 70s. It's like a murderer's row of great parts.
Yeah.
And he always played something different.
Yeah.
Now, here's another question. This kind of film, I feel like, is stuck in this decade because there are not a lot of these psychological thrillers kind of like this since about 1980. But in this decade, you have the 3 Pakula movies. You have The Conversation that's very much like this movie. I haven't seen it, but I think The China Syndrome is very similar to this movie. So you have all of these 70s psychological thrillers, and I really enjoy all of them. I can't say that they're like all perfect movies by any capacity, but I don't know why these have gone by the wayside so much. I know that certain decades lend themselves to a very particular niche form of a genre, but the only thing that's anywhere close to this, and this is no secret, like I'm borrowing from the people who made it, who said they leaned into this kind of thing, but Severance is very much like this psychological thriller type thing in its essence. I don't know why more of these aren't being made.
I'm going to coin a term. Psychedelic noir.
Okay.
I like it.
I can buy it. I can buy it.
Just looking at this movie feels like you're going to like a thrift shop, or like a nostalgia vintage store, like vintage clothing, like everything's so 70s. But I feel like the 70s, I think I may have mentioned this before because I've been on here for 70s movies before, but I feel like that was the decade, the last great decade, like really great decade for original stuff. And I'm not going to blame Steven Spielberg because I love him, but when you bring in blockbusters, that changes everything. And that makes the 80s a totally different kind of thing as far as what movies they're willing to make. And I think also if you want to like dive a little deeper into like thrillers like this specifically, I think that the 80s kind of started bringing into like this kind of a thriller, or a thriller like Chinatown that's about water. That's not enough. It's got to be like sexier. It's got to be more lurid. I feel like that's what the 80s thrillers were about. And then that continued on into the 90s until I guess John Grisham brought in the legal thriller. But
yeah,
I have not seen Severance, so I've heard it's good. But anyway, it feels like you really have to look hard to find movies like this, and they're not going to be this good even if you find them. So I blame blockbusters. I'll say that.
I think you have a point to make, though, that the 80s and probably to the mid-90s leaned into a lot of big, dumb action movie types, and that was their subgenre. And I think that the audience is ready to have some intelligent movies again if you're willing to bear with them. But here's my biggest thing why I think these movies could be much more successful. There's an appetite for this kind of thing. The amount of conspiracy theory and other shit going around in America right now is so at its apex that if you made something like The Parallax View again, people would take it as gospel and like run with it. It would be like this. It would be like to what our generation is with The Matrix. Like it's this great overarching conspiracy. It was never made as such, but it's become such a cultural icon because it could be real.
It's also a very strange time. Like the time we're recording this right now is very strange in terms of cinema, because we've just learned that like a 26-year-old YouTuber can make a low budget horror movie that just takes the world totally by storm. And it's probably going to change the direction of movies from now on. Like that's that influential, the like obsession thing that's going on in the box office, the way it keeps growing every week. It's pretty wild. So hopefully we can throw in some paranoia in there too.
I said, I even want to go see it. And
it's
I'm
good.
That's not my genre.
Yeah,
but
it's good, but like I wish they could throw in, like you're talking about, Tom, some old fashioned paranoia thrillers. Let's get some of those in there.
But think about it. In the 70s, it was the last gasp of some of the old studios having control. And it started right about then when the corporations and the hedge funds and the equity firms were buying up. Sony ends up buying Columbia. And, and it started. And now it's just corporate and it's all about the money. And so they're going to try to make the safest investment instead of necessarily putting something into the artistic nature of it and taking a risk, because risk and making money are not always synonymous. Maybe. Depends on what the risk is, I guess.
Yeah, it's not really like it's not an auteur medium anymore the way it used to be. And Pakula would definitely kind of be that.
So, Dad, do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. A Pennsylvania businessman vanishes. The only clue: threatening letters sent to a New York City call girl named Bree Daniels. Private Detective John Klute, played by Donald Sutherland, heads to the city to find answers and finds himself drawn into Bree's dangerous world.
Thank you. So what is the film about?
It's two people looking for something in life that is missing.
Okay, can you expand on that a little?
Well, obviously, Klute has this very controlled, centrist life, and there's something not quite enough. And so he sees it in her. For her, she's looking to get out, but she has this real dichotomy of wanting to be in, but not wanting to be in. And so both of them are very battered souls looking for something more in their lives.
I don't know why I thought of this, but it must have been like a month ago. I saw some TikTok video while I was scrolling on the can. And it was somebody describing two other women. I was not the intended audience, I guess. It was like one of these direct-to-camera appeals to women that never gravitate towards the safe guy. And her point that she was trying to make in this was, you don't feel comfortable with the safe guy because it's something you've never felt in your entire life. You're from a background where you've been likely in some level of anxiety, and trauma and abuse, and those are your normals now. And so because you're not in that environment and you feel safe, it feels so foreign and uncomfortable that you have to like push away from it, rebel, sabotage any potential that you have with that because you are so used to the trauma. And for this character, because the movie really actually should be named Bree or whatever, I'll take Roger Ebert's suggestion that it should be named after her because the movie's really about her, not about him. She is so used to this cycle of violence and trauma and bad people and drug abuse and all of this other stuff that's going on that we see in her world throughout the film as we continue to go further and further and further into what makes her world, that it's going to be hard for her to escape because that's now her normal. Whether she was living on Park Avenue at one time is irrelevant because now she's not living there. And she's trying to grapple with, do I go back to the lifestyle? Am I going to be an actress? And she just cannot seem to break herself out of this cycle without some sort of foreign entity knocking her out of that orbit.
Yeah. She has a line where it's like, this is a therapy line again, but she's like, she's like, I feel the urge to destroy it. She's like, so I can go back to being numb again.
Yes.
Which I thought was very telling, a good line. And like, when you were talking about the Park Avenue thing, also made me think, like, I love how the movie portrays her apartment as a terrible place when it's like the biggest New York City apartment you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, it's such a shithole, right?
I think her furniture is probably more run down than the actual apartment itself. But
exactly.
In the 70s...
Especially in the end when it's empty, you're like, wow, that's a great space.
Like, you watch this movie and you watch Taxi Driver, and it's like, is there any place that isn't a shithole in New York City in the 70s?
Well, go back to the 50s and look at the honeymooners.
But yeah, I think this movie is very much about violence and trauma and abuse and all of these other things that she's had to experience and how we potentially break out of those cycles. Because realistically, the entire mystery surrounding Tom Gruneman and this universe is a violent man who was not necessarily violent, but he was trying to whet his own sexual appetites, became violent as a bi or a connected portion to what else was going on, but she's so used to all of this other stuff that's going on around it that it's hard to break these cycles. And we see this repeatedly if you're ever around the actual criminal justice system and not what you see on television or Law and Order and etc. But just these repeated cycles of abuse and trauma and etc. that just keep repeating itself generation after generation.
Yeah. That's a crazy turn when he pretty much blames her. He's like, you were the one who opened up the dark corners of my mind or like got me out, like, like you're talking about. You're like, whoa. Yeah, that took me by surprise that's where it went was basically where it went was sex work is predatory. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to hold up today, but anyway, that's fine. Every movie's in their own place. So.
Well, he is a sociopath, so he's entitled to his opinion.
Exactly, yeah. Nobody's saying he's right about any of this.
Did you know? Klute was only the second film score for Michael Small, who said that Pakula took a big risk here to work with an unknown composer. Did you know? Pakula wanted composer Michael Small not to play low notes in his score because the audience already knows that it's scary. I want to say, I guess I'm going to have more to say on the film score in a minute, when we get to performances and such, but I really wanted to highlight the film score in some capacity of the episode tonight. Did you know? Sutherland and Fonda developed a non-exclusive romantic relationship off-screen which lasted until about June 1972. He was actually her date to the Oscars when she won Best Actress for this movie. I can see it. I think they did have good natural chemistry.
Yeah.
So since Scott threw out Terry Garr before, I guess while we were off air, here's another one for you. Did you know? Future film star Sylvester Stallone made an appearance as an extra in this film. He's the one dancing in front of the organ pipes during the first disco scene. Did you know? The scene with the psychiatrist was mostly ad-libbed. Bakula used just one camera and later said he should have used two, as Vivian Nathan's reactions were much more interesting in the takes where the camera focused on Jane Fonda. I think that... I know that he didn't have like a long breadth of a career because he died prematurely in some really weird circumstances. But that being said, this feels like a precursor movie as he starts to continue to move his way forward and really perfect some of his craft. He again works with Gordon Willis later on in a film that I would say is probably his best, in All the President's Men. And by that point, he's really gotten down some of the beats and the rhythms, but he's working with high-end professionals by that point in his career, and 5 years later come to master his craft in a different capacity. Did you know? When Jane Fonda asked her father for advice on what to say for her Oscar acceptance speech, he suggested, quote, "There's a great deal to say, but I'm not going to say it tonight."
Okay. I remember that line. I remember she said that.
And with that, we will take our first break, and we'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 318th episode, we're discussing T2, Judgment Day from 1991, celebrating its 35th anniversary. Written and directed by James Cameron with William Wisher. Cinematography by Adam Greenberg. Music by Brad Fiedel. Editing by Conrad Buff, Mark Goldblatt, and Richard A. Harris. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Robert Patrick. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. All right. Before we get too much further, let's check in with our guest. Scott, what's going on with you? What are you working on, and where can people find you?
I'm still just hanging around and making jokes on Twitter. Pretty much all I do. So it's at Cole, Scott. That's my last name, the word comma, and then Scott. And then that's where you want to go if you want, dumb jokes about movies or just reactions to movies I see, or to find my Letterboxd link. Again, Simpsons jokes all the time. Pro tennis information. Serena just came back. Very exciting. She's going to be back for Wimbledon. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm about. So, but there's nothing new. Like, I haven't written anything recently. I need to get back into that, but oh well. It's all right. Life happens.
You are certainly an interesting follow, my friend. But again, as always with everybody, their links are in the episode description of this episode, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com on the individualized show page for this episode, and you can find all of his attributions and links there.
Can I plug one thing? There is
Absolutely.
one thing I just thought of to plug. Okay, I just recorded an episode, I guess it'll be out pretty soon, of a podcast called Media Lit. And we did I met them through Andrew, our friend Andrew, and we did a Wes Anderson character draft. So we went through and drafted characters of Wes Anderson movies for different categories, and it was a lot of fun. So that should be out soon, and that's pretty fun. And I was pretty happy with the roster I was able to put together. Yeah.
I'm not even sure where I'd begin with one of those things. Like, what exactly is scarce?
Well, my first, I got the second overall pick. So I got to take my favorite, which was Max Fisher from Rushmore, Jason Schwartzman. But those characters went fast. The characters people like almost all of the Tenenbaums went pretty fast. Everybody so you kind of had to jump on what you really want as soon as you can. And then from there on, you just had to build it out as best you can. There are a couple of Wes Anderson movies I don't really like that much, so I tried to leave those off entirely. So I was kind of limited in the movies I could pick, but because you can only pick one character per movie and only one character per actor. So I can only do one Bill Murray performance, one Jason Schwartzman, Wilson brothers, that kind of thing. So it was fun, challenging, but fun.
It's an interesting concept, but yeah, I'll have to give that a listen.
Yeah.
So we left off at best performance. Dad, who did you have down?
Jane Fonda. I have nothing more to say. I mean, we've been talking about it for most of the show. So her performance was intelligent, but yet remorseful, and self-reflective, but yet destructive.
Scott, did you also have Fonda, or did you go somewhere else?
I did. I was thinking about what you said earlier during the Fonda thing, like about how. So the interesting thing about Jane Fonda was when we were kids, she was gone during our childhood. Like she retired during our entire childhood, pretty much. Like from when I was 5 to when I was 20, she was out of the movies. So it's like I had to discover her later, and then I went back and found everything after. So it's like I grew up knowing her as the workout video lady because my mom had those tapes, and I hadn't seen her in any movies because she just stopped being in movies when she got married to Ted Turner and just wasn't in movies for a while. But the funny thing is now that she's back, it's like, and she's stayed around for so long. Like I think she's like late 80s now, and she's still acting and still around.
I think she's 86.
Yeah, it's like these movies stay in the consciousness because she's always around. She's very like vocally, has always been politically active. Let's just say that. Always been very vocal about what she believes in. And because she's still that way, it's like, I feel like people have a lot of reverence for her and look back at these movies a lot. And in my opinion, yes, I think she's great in this movie and like has been great in other movies. But in this one, I kind of mentioned this, but like, there's something about like the way she's like got just an intense focus, and like, it feels like she's really in the moment. I know she studied with like Lee Strasberg, and like, she has that kind of quality in movies. Like she's very watchable on camera. You can't get bored watching her. I never get bored seeing what she's going to do. So
just don't mention her name in most VFW clubs.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I play trivia at my local VFW on Thursdays, and the urinals in the back of them have a target of Hanoi Jane to aim at.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The documentary made about her a few years ago for HBO, it's like Jane Fonda in 5 acts or something like that. It was great. And she addresses that a lot, about that mistake and how she feels about it. Yeah. And talks a lot about her father, which is interesting. Her relationship with her dad was very interesting too.
I'm sure
he was a very difficult man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went somewhere completely different, and I have already kind of dropped where I was going to go with this. I have Michael Small as the composer. The number one thing about this movie that I would take away is the music. It has an eerie quality to it. It's constantly making you uncomfortable and on edge, and it reminds me so much of like The Shining, that opening where it's just this eerie music that's constantly in the background and comes out at the worst times to remind you, hey, you're not okay. This is not going to be fun. You're in this world now, and hello, surprise. So I love what he did with the film score in this one, just bringing that extra ambiance. And to me, it really highlights the things about the film that I really wanted to feel.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you said The Shining, because for me, those like scary pianos was Eyes Wide Shut. I was like, this reminds me so much of Eyes Wide Shut, but it's Kubrick, it's like that same quality. And I agree. The score is very unsettling, and it starts out instantly and you're just like, wow, it's very well done. I think that's a good choice for performance, because he knocks it out of the park for sure.
Best secondary performance, I have Donald Sutherland. I have a feeling that multiple of us are going to nominate him in this slot. But a flashback to what we were saying before the break, he's just solid in this movie. He's the central character that gives you this quiet strength that you have to have from that character. It's a resoluteness. It is no nonsense. And he is the ray of light by being somewhat the character of strength, the pillar of strength in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he never gives you the he's mine also, but he was like, if you think about his performance with the other movies we mentioned, like Don't Look Now or Body Snatchers, like he starts all those movies kind of as a stoic figure. By the end, he's broken down. Like the movie has broken him down entirely. But this movie, you don't get it. He's just that stoic character all the way through. And it's pretty fascinating to watch. He's another person who you can just watch his face. It's like so expressive and so unusual that you're just like pretty captivated.
I have Pakula.
Okay.
I think that he kind of drew this together. And I have, as the most uncharismatic actor, the actual charismatic actor, because he's kind of the antithesis. I have Donald Sutherland for the most charismatic because I think his charisma is his lack of charisma. He has an ability to be plain and non-threatening, he doesn't have to like shout to the lens to be seen. You can talk about his performance in The Dirty Dozen. You can talk about his performance in MASH. He just has this ability by just being natural and common to take over scenes. Everybody else kind of, if you can control your emotions while the world loses theirs, that's the mentality of him as an actor. So I find him charismatic because he does not fit the traditional norm of what is charismatic.
I'd like to back up just a second. You nominated the director here when you didn't have to for a movie that you criticized in your initial reactions for a lack of direction or in some spatial. So I just want you to explain that a little further.
Sure. 90% of the movie I thought was well done. It's the 10% that I have a problem with. But I also understand that this was one of his earlier films, and you could see the talent, and you could see what he was trying to do with it. So I'm not going to go too far out and say he's not quite, So I'm going to recognize the talent that I did see instead of criticizing the limits that I noticed.
Okay. As far as charismatic, since you already went there, I'm going to go with Jane Fonda here. I think that she is somebody that you want to protect, but I don't feel like the role that she plays, and I think part of the reason she ends up winning the Oscar is this could have been the damsel in distress type, especially given how Sutherland plays his character, that she could have been the protected one, and she transforms the role much more into somebody trying to break out of these cycles of abuse and trauma and makes it much deeper and richer. And so because, yes, obviously she's a very beautiful woman who, even in her old age, has like held up her looks extraordinarily well.
She's a little bit of work done.
Even so, like, it's not bad work, kind of like we criticize some people for having. Like, it seems much more minor or subtle, and I don't think that she looks nearly as bad as some, if that's the case. I won't speculate because I'm not always good at being able to diagnose or see all of the surgical efforts, let's say, interventions maybe. But that being said, I think that she is a character that you want to follow throughout the movie. Maybe not, you commonly use the phrase drawn to. Like, I didn't feel connected to her character, but I was interested in what happens to her character, if that makes any difference.
Let's just put it this way. Who was in control throughout this film? Bree Daniels.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if there's anybody that's in full control.
She's in control. She's the power in this film.
I think she has her moments, but I don't think she's in total control. I would disagree with that.
All right, maybe the term control, but she has the power in a lot of these situations.
Yes, I think as the escort, she has a very powerful situation for people that feel a certain level of shame for their desires and proclivities. That I would agree with you on. I think she also exposes some level of power when she gets the upper hand on Sutherland and exposes his quote-unquote lack of virtue. So there is that. But I also would say that she's not fully in control of herself at times. And that's why I guess I would push back on control as opposed to power. I will stipulate to power.
I feel like I understand what you mean. Like, I feel like I'm drawn to her for different reasons, but one of them is because I don't understand some of the things she does in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, some of the choices she makes are not clear why she's doing them. And that's just kind of naturally compelling. You're like, why did she jump out of the car right there? Like, or just other stuff. Why does she go back to my most charismatic award, one of my favorite actors in the world, Roy Scheider?
There you go.
I love Roy Scheider. I love him in everything. He's great. He's like, I just find him incredibly underrated in general. I mean, I know people love all that jazz, which is great, Jaws, etc. Sorcerer. He's such a good actor, and he's so speaking of like a face with character and like a guy who looks like, I don't know, I want to be respectful. He's very handsome. He's got a face on him. He's got a face, and those are
looks like your Uncle John.
Yeah, he looks like tan Uncle John who's been smoking cigars for a while, and he's just, yeah, he's got. But in this movie, playing that part, it's a smaller role, which I'm guessing, I mean, Jaws hadn't happened yet, so it's not even that small of a part. It's just like, it's probably the third lead, but I find him really convincing, and like, you feel like the appropriate amount of, I would say, like danger coming off of him, but also you're like, it's just very believable, like him as that pimp.
Right.
Yeah. And that scene where they're in her apartment and she's like packing to go with him, I just thought he played that scene really well. Like, he's got such a like self-satisfied thing about him until they get into it. But yeah, anyway.
Let's move to best scene. I have 5 nominees here. Prowler on the Roof, which I think is somewhat self-explanatory. I have Late Night Tryst, which is the moment where she coerces him into sleeping with her and tries to get the upper hand. We have the therapy montage that we've mentioned a few different times to this point already. We have Bree betrays Klute, which I think is the moment that she tries to cut him, when he gets into the fight with Roy Scheider and ends up leaving because he feels like she's chosen against him. And then I have the final tape, which is kind of the reveal of the killer or the person that's been behind all of this, and then the conclusion of that. Did anybody have any additional scenes to add, though?
As far as direction goes, I thought the disco scene was really well shot and directed.
Okay.
Like, I really liked the way you said Stallone was in it. I would have never known. There's so many people, but like the way the camera moved, the way it looked. I know how hard those scenes are to film and to get right, so I just really like appreciated that scene. That was very convincing to me.
Okay, so adding that one in, out of these, what is the best scene?
I'm going to say therapy. The therapy ones are mine. I think they're the best scenes in the movie. I think they're the best acted scenes in the movie. I liked what you said about the director wishing he had a camera on the psychiatrist. I kind of wanted to see some of her reaction shots during some of those revelations, so that would have been cool too. Although I understand why he kept it like a oneer on Jane Fonda while she's obviously ad-libbing, so it makes sense when you find out that it was her sort of coming up with it. But I guess when you were talking about you didn't really feel a connection or deep connection with her, I found myself connecting with her because of some of the things she said, and I was like, oh, those are some dark revelations that like I've felt. So I did have like kind of a weird connection with it, and it revealed itself in those scenes. So that's what I liked about it.
I know what you mean there. I think that is I can't even say smartly written because it wasn't written, but it is a smart addition or an intellectual addition to be that reflective, that introspective of the movie and what it's actually about. And I think it adds a layer of depth that wasn't there. So I would agree that to me is the most important, because it starts to develop the one thing that I feel is a little bit underdeveloped in this, and that's the relationship between the two of them, which ultimately becomes what the movie is about in the end.
For me, I have therapy montage as well, simply because I think it's the most revealing about her character. It really kind of defines her as a person and why you look at this film and it's really about her and her situation.
So I also have the therapy montage as my favorite, but it's just for the intellectual exercise of dropping this into the movie and then adding that layer of depth that I like, that the movie is making me think along with it outside of just the puzzle box nature of what's going on, what happened to the guy that they're looking for. Now it has given me this extra thread to think about in this relationship and all these other permutations from that. I felt that was something that really engaged me, so that's why it's my favorite.
Yeah. I think therapy is my favorite too, just for all the reasons. Although I will give an honorable mention to the scene where it's early, she's at her table, she's smoking a joint, drinking some wine, and she just busts out into that Thanksgiving song, like We Gather Together. I don't know why, but I found that charming. I was like, it was just an odd choice. I don't know who came up with that idea, but it was, somehow it told me some things about her. I don't know. It was kind of cool. I don't know why I like weird stuff like that in movies. So, yeah.
I had therapy montage as my favorite scene as well, simply because I thought I enjoyed those more than anything. And my most indelible, I'll go with that since I'm at the tail end. I have the final tape. I think I knew who the murderer was early on because I figured out when they started doing the scenes with him sitting in his room by himself playing those tapes. I'm going, okay, this is the guy.
That one
was
was
all about him.
The moment that they put it in the conference room, I thought, okay, so this is somebody a little bit higher up. I hadn't placed exactly what his connection was, but it didn't feel like it was this greater reveal. The reveal is his confession as to what happened not only to Tom Gruneman, but to the other escort that he also killed, which they chalked up as suicide. So he's good at hiding his tracks, but he's not an actual violent man. I don't consider myself a bad person, you know?
Yeah.
I've just killed 3 people.
Yeah, I also have that as my most indelible moment because in a puzzle box movie, when you solve the original mystery, it's probably one of the things that sticks with you the most.
Yeah. I had the scene where she is meeting with the John in the hotel room at the beginning. I mentioned it before. I feel like the movie needs that scene to convince you that she was a previous like high-priced call girl who's slumming it more or less because she's trying to maybe change her ways sort of, but she kind of self-sabotaging, but she wants to change her ways a little bit. Also, she's gotten busted, so that explains why she's kind of wanting to slow down a little bit. But no, her scene with that guy, like the way she talks to him, the way she like kind of pushes him in the direction she wants him to go, it makes it think it's his idea. I just thought the way she played that was really interesting, and the way it was written. So it could have been written a lot simpler and stupider, I thought, but it impressed me. So that's what I would say.
I think also using the phrase, "Oh, my angel," like it was somehow nurturing to bring out that additional side of it, was an interesting choice. It was clearly a choice, but...
Yeah. Oh, my angel, check the wristwatch. Oh, my angel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old joke. What's the difference between your girlfriend, your wife, and a prostitute? Your girlfriend says, "Oh baby, oh baby." A prostitute says, "Oh daddy, and your wife says, "Oh beige, oh beige." I think I'll paint the ceiling beige.
That's a good one.
Leaving that in, but that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, There's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find us the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That is the grades we've done so far for all 286 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Yes. Anne Shadeen, 77, American actress. Elf, Marcus Welby, M.D., Three's Company. Margaret Carey, 97, American dancer and actress, Peter Pan, and If You Knew Susie. Anthony Guidera, 65, American actor, Species, Godfather Part 3, The Rock, and was also a model. Ronnie Schell, 94, American actor, Gomer Pyle, USMC, Good Morning World, The Jetsons, the movie, and Gene Shalit, 100, American journalist, Ladies' Home Journal, media critic, look, and television personality today.
So a couple of things to clean up additionally to that. One, it is Elf, not Elf, as far as like any younger viewers, in case you couldn't hear the subtle pronunciation difference. It was a TV show about a weird-looking alien from, what, the 70s? The 80s? 80s? Okay.
Yeah.
And when Dana says today, he means the Today Show, the early morning show that has no significance to anybody under the age of 40. But I don't have a relationship really with any of the people that passed away this week, so if either of you has some additional commentary, I would welcome it here.
I have, okay, so Gene Shalit, for me, growing up, was a big television critic. I always would see him. My parents would watch the Today Show, my grandparents. So I've seen him my whole life. But a cool thing that happened was my mom was a school teacher, and one of her best friends she taught with is the longtime partner of a guy who is a producer for the Today Show. Specifically, he was the producer for Gene Shalit for his segment all those years he was on the Today Show. So I know this guy and his wife because they're my mom's friends, and they know that I'm a big movie guy, so they told Gene Shalit about me. And he was nice enough to write me like a handwritten letter, encouraging me to like write movie reviews and stuff, and just, it was really nice. And he sent me the Alien Quadrilogy on DVD, the first 4 Alien movies. And I thought that was awesome, too, because I wasn't even old enough to see R-rated movies yet, and he sent me 4 in a pack. But also, this was, like, expensive back then. He sent it to me. It was brand new. It was shrink-wrapped. But, yeah, and I had the letter. Well, my mom said she had the letter somewhere. I need to find it. It was very, very nice. But he seemed like a lovely man, and that's a nice connection I have with him. And he lived to be 100, which is great. I wish we were all that lucky.
Well, thank you, Scott, for sharing that.
I love Gene Shalit. That was one of the only reasons to watch the Today Show, was to watch him either do a review of a TV show or a movie. I loved his reviews. I always thought they were funny, they were insightful and such. Yeah. Ronnie Schell, if you were a child of the 60s and 70s, Ronnie Schell was on so many different things. And, of course, he played Gomer's buddy on Gomer Pyle. And when I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that Anne Shadeen was on Elf, and then Marcus Welby and Three's Company, those are 60s, 70s, and 80s. Some of the better shows or top shows on television. So she kind of had a sweet spot there for 30 or 3 decades, which I thought was interesting.
I know I watched Alf when I was young, but I don't remember. I don't remember Anne, but I know I've seen her because I used to watch Alf when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think she was the mother on that show.
Okay. One final thing I will say is, if you have not seen, if you like Family Guy, there's a very funny skit that's on YouTube of Peter getting robbed by Gene Shalit. It's very funny. Check it out sometime. He's using his like movie puns as he's trying to rob him. It's pretty good. Yeah.
And so we remember these here fondly for their contributions to the arts with a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you. Let's move to best lines. I am up first. I will take Bree Daniel. Don't feel bad about losing your virtue. I sort of knew you would. Everybody always does.
Yeah, I thought about the line where she said she's expecting him to be impressed. She's like, what about, all of us big city? I can't remember the exact line. It's like, did you learn something here in the big city from all of us? And he just goes, all of that's so pathetic. And her face just drops and she goes, F you or whatever. But I just thought that was an interesting exchange between the two of them.
Bree Daniels. I have no idea what's going to happen. I just can't stay in the city, Maybe I'll come back. You'll probably see me next week.
Bree Daniel. And for an hour? For an hour. I'm the best actress in the world and the best fuck in the world.
When they first meet and she's talking to him and she's just in the middle of a sentence, goes, you have a really nice mouth to Donald Sutherland. That just got me for some reason.
Bree Daniels. Men would pay $200 for me, and here you are turning down a freebie. You could get a perfectly good dishwasher for that.
My last one, I have Peter Cable. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm so deeply puzzled. I've done terrible things. I've killed 3 people. Really, I don't consider myself a terrible man. No more than others.
I'm going to cheat slightly. It's not really a line, but it's this funny thing that happens twice in the movie that I thought was funny. Apparently, the way to treat someone going through withdrawals, all you need is a moist towel to rub on them. They do that twice. Apparently, that makes withdrawals go away. So that's good.
Bree Daniels. You're not going to get hung up on me, are you?
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out too.
Okay.
Well, I said the one earlier, the one I liked the most earlier, which was I keep feeling the need to destroy it to go back to the comfort of being numb again. I thought that was really good, but I kind of mentioned that earlier. So,
all right, let's move to the Stanley rubric. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy approximately 5 years after the film came out. So roughly 1976 to today. What is the legacy of this film as shared between 2 equal yet separate groups? The audience and the industry, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
I'll go second.
On the industry side, I think this movie has some name recognition. I think it is important for people who at least admire one of the 3 main contributors to this movie, Pakula, Sutherland, or Fonda. I think it is notable in each of their careers. But even compared to some of the other movies that any of them have done, if you're going to say, name me a Donald Sutherland movie, how far down the list is this movie? I think you're going to get to MASH. I think you're going to get to Ordinary People. I think you're going to get to possibly even the Hunger Games movies before you get to this movie for the ordinary person. I know this is for industry, but I'm just saying on an industry level, I don't think that the reverence is there. And because it's not nominated for inclusion in the National Film Registry, it's not on some of these greatest films of all time lists, it isn't thought of quite in that way. I think it has respect and name recognition, but it's not quite in the same capacity where I can put it at a 4 or a 5. So I'm at a 3 for industry. On the public side of this, our world famous office poll actually had a surprising number of people put their hand up. But to out one of the people who works in our Madison office, they thought Dana said Clue, not Klute.
That is a different situation
yeah,
there.
just a little difference.
And so there weren't nearly as many people as we thought. That being said, I think this is a movie that has been seen somewhere between probably half of cinephiles and most cinephiles, with a little contribution from the general public that might have seen this film. I don't think it's like a high-ranking one, but I'm going to split the baby here a little bit and go with a 2.5, and so that puts me at a 5.5 for legacy overall.
I'll make it really quick and easy.
Ditto. Okay. You provincial putz.
Okay. I had 4 on legacy within the industry. I feel like, you know what I feel like is when I watch Criterion Closet videos, I hear a lot of these people grab Klute and talk about it. I feel like the movie has, like, when you think about that, it's kind of like a trope, but or like a cliche, but it's like, if you're a lead actress in Hollywood, you're going to have to play a prostitute at some point. Most of them have, and I feel like Jane Fonda is kind of like she kind of started it in a way. Like, I feel like they all would look up to her. Yeah, she's like the bar for what they're trying to achieve with it, at least as far as being realistic. So I think within the industry, and I mean, you look at like the Gordon Willis camera work. I've seen movies that feel like they're trying to maybe not copy it, but like are influenced by the way this movie looks, which it looks great. We mentioned that, I guess, but it looks terrific. So for legacy, I will say 4 in the industry. And then I was going to say 3 with the public because I don't feel like I'm trying to think outside of like film Twitter circles or like film. It'll be on Turner Classic Movies once a year maybe, and then I don't hear about it a lot other than that. But the reason why I give it a little bit higher is because of how big Jane Fonda is still. I feel like her popularity now almost casts like it retroactively makes the movie, because people always think about 2-time Oscar winner Jane Fonda. What did she win for? I feel like it keeps her popularity continues to keep this movie in the public consciousness, sort of. So that's a 3. So a 7 is my total.
So that'll be a 6 average between the 3 of us. Briefly here, Dad, what is her second Oscar for?
Boy.
Do you need a hint?
Deer or
She's not in the Deer
Coming
Hunter.
Home?
Very good.
Our hint was Hanoi Jane. No, just kidding.
But, and you want, to be honest, okay, as long as we're taking a brief aside, okay, you want to know what film has allowed her to remain in the cultural pantheon, in this 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people have seen that film and like that film, even though it's kind of a throwaway?
Yep.
It's just, she's comes across as being really pleasant and like, oh, this is somebody I'd like to have over for coffee,
Yep.
type of thing. And I think it did more for her career than anything.
Yep. That shows her range too, because her character in that movie kind of gets walked all over for a while and then has to step it up. It's very different than what she's doing in here. And aside from the workout videos, 9 to 5 was the first time I probably saw her ever. So yeah.
I thought for sure you were going to say something like The Book Club or 80
No.
for Brady.
What was the
80 for Brady.
Yes, I saw that. I took my wife to see and mother-in-law to see that at the theater.
It's
And
not
it was okay.
terrible. It's not terrible. Yeah. it's
No,
not that
I
bad.
mean it was okay.
all right,
mean,
yeah.
you get some really good actresses,
Yeah.
and it was fun to see them.
Book club goes to a football game.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to impact and significance. The first 5 years that we discounted in the last category is now under the microscope here. So we add that back in. So roughly 1971 to 1976. What is the impact and significance of this film as shared between the same 2 equal yet separate groups, the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Since I led off the last category, Dad, you were up first.
I think that in the short period, I think the industry, it allowed Pakula to have other opportunities and continue his career. I think it put Jane Fonda it further elevated her leading into the late 70s. But it's not huge. So I'm at a 3.5 for the industry. And for the public, it did well. It just didn't do great. So I'm at a 3.5 for there. So I'm at a 7 overall.
Yeah, I said 4 on the industry, and what I was thinking of was kind of what you touched on, like the fact that this started the Pakula paranoia thriller thing. Like, obviously, in the next few years, he was going to make a couple more. So this movie kind of had a long tail as far as that goes. I wasn't sure about the public. The reason why I'm going to give it a 3 for the public is because I was talking to my mom about it, and she was like, you know what that movie had a big impact on was fashion. She was like, a lot of us were trying to look like some of those looks that Jane Fonda had in that movie. So that's just, I mean, that's a small example, but it's sort of a way that movies can get into the zeitgeist that way too, you know, like with fashion, things like that. So that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, maybe that puts it in the middle. So yeah, I just said a 3 for that short-term impact, and then so that would be a 7 total there too.
All right, 2 7s on the board. I'm going to be slightly different here and ruin the math. I had this at a 4.5 for the industry. While it is not overly nominated for a ton of things, the critical analysis of this movie seemed generally positive. I think they were kind of the same as both of you, that they were critical of the direction at the time, but they definitely felt that the lead performances and some of the other pieces of the movie were worthy of inclusion and gave it generally positive feedback and reviews. So I can't discount that completely when you have a universal sentiment almost to that capacity. Additionally, when you talk about the promotion of Pakula as a director, this lets him move on to those other films. I think that we've had a history of rewarding that in this category in the past. So him moving on to bigger and better projects, within 5 years, he's doing possibly one of the most remembered movies of this entire decade in All the President's Men. Gordon Willis, his follow-up movie to this is The Godfather, and then The Godfather Part 2. So it's tough to say that he doesn't go on to bigger things. This is Jane Fonda's first Oscar. She has a fairly large 70s body of work as a result, probably, of this movie, although she was kind of building up to this. But this is like kicking down the door, and then I can do anything I want to after that, but builds herself into a household name as a result. I just think there's too much here for me to give it really less. I can't give it the full 5 because that's talking about like Best Picture winner status, or you got like a dozen nominations, that kind of thing. But a 4.5 feels deserved given the industry impact among all of these other things out there. As far as the public, 12th at the box office, I think it breeds a new subgenre. Like, this isn't quite the guerrilla style filmmaking that you get from A French Connection that creates kind of the cop drama of the 70s. But I feel like this is creating a different archetype in the psychological thriller. It breaks from what we got from the Hitchcock movies of the 50s and the early 60s and moves us into a slightly different era where we cap it off to a degree with something like The Shining and China Syndrome and these other movies that are just made a little bit differently. They're stylistically a little bit different. The editing, I think, is where you see that the most, as they're moving between very quick cuts so much more often to give you this feeling of uneasiness. And there's action in bursts in a way that Hitchcock really led you up to something, but then he'd stay on the action for a little while. These have these like very short burst action pieces. Even the movie, the resolution of this movie is very small. He basically notices Donald Sutherland there, and it's almost over within 30 seconds after that.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of action, whereas I felt like Hitchcock would have lingered on the explosion and all of the other things that go around with it, and he wouldn't have ripped the rug out so quickly to give you that release of the tension. He would have wanted you to stay with it just that little bit longer to give you that impact. So by that extension, I think the way that these 70s psychological thrillers are made and the appetite for them is somewhat born out of this movie. So I had a 3.5. I have an 8. And that's going to be a 7.33 average between the three of us. Then let's move to Novelty. This is a measure of anything original about the film, as well as the execution on the film. 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. This is a little bit more of a nuanced category than in years past. And so I believe I will start here. I think this has elements of it that are new, novel, create this subgenre, as I was mentioning a minute ago. However, the psychological thriller is not born out of this movie. I don't think that it is all that much different than some of its compatriots from the same decade, or at least separates itself in a way that I could really give it huge numbers. But I think the subtlety and the small pieces in the filmmaking, the performances, lead me to a 3.5 there. Where this movie, to me, shines is in its execution, because whether you want to put together the cinematography, I actually think the editing was something we haven't really commented on to this point, but I feel like it's very effective. It could have been a little bit better, a little bit more crisp, but I can't really fault it too much overall. The production design is fairly top-notch. If we got the fashion world adopting stuff out of this movie, obviously then the costume designing is exceptional in the film. I just think there are so many little pieces to this. The one thing I would say is there's just a few small things holding it up from being just a 5. I'll agree. There at least is that one period that I said after the initial setup of the movie where it feels like it's dragging a little bit as we're lingering on Bree and kind of slowly interjecting us into her world, that maybe could have been sped up a little through maybe some of the editing. The writing, having to develop the story through a little bit of ad lib, while it eventually works, it undercuts that the writing was as crisp. So I'm not quite there. I'm at a 4.5. So that's a 8 overall for me. Sorry, I was having to do some mental math there for a second.
So for originality, I was thinking about the way the movie starts. Like, the movie opens, it starts with that dinner scene, that flashback to the dinner where Klute's there with Tom and his family. It might even be Thanksgiving. They're all there. And then the editing, it cuts in between that with him talking to her, or Tom's wife, and like them telling her, about the letters and stuff. It's a weird way to start a movie. It kind of throws you in. You're uneasy. I found that to be somewhat original. Like, I think the way the movie like sort of is talkier than a lot of other thrillers, the way it takes its time and really like lets you as you get to know the characters. It's more so about that than about really thrills and action that much. That did seem original to me, but then again, there are like the certain cliches that the movie kind of can't avoid because it has to, because of the thriller elements in the plot. You have to wrap it up a certain way. So I ended up with 3.5 for originality. I agree with you that execution is probably the better way to like judge it. And I thought it was well made. It was beautiful. The acting was great. The editing, I'm glad you mentioned that. I thought that was excellent. Gordon Willis, it looks beautiful. The music you mentioned is great. But then I just find it, again, a little bit sleepy at times, a little bit draggy, like you said. And that's the only reason why I don't give it a 5 for execution is so I'm like at a 4. So that's a 7.5 total.
I'm going to disagree a bit with both of you. I think originality, I'm at a 4.5. As I've indicated, I coined the term psychedelic noir. I think this redefined the genre a little bit and kind of brought it more modern as to the fact of what is a film noir in the 70s. So I give it a little bit more. Execution is where I have a little bit of problem. I've already mentioned pace. Okay, I cannot remember too many of these type of films where the villain is as flat as this one. I mean, he is like two-dimensional. There's nothing there. I mean, other than his little expression at the end, okay. And to boot, the ending is a bit of a letdown to me. So I'm going to give it a 4 for the execution. So I'm at a 9.5, an 8.5. But yeah, those two things in the execution are leaving me a little less happy about the film execution-wise as opposed to the two of you.
That is an average between the three of us. I will just slightly push back on one element there. The two-dimensional villain, it's because the story's not really about him. That's kind of the point, is it transforms into, he's the initial antagonist when he's amorphous and he could be anybody and we have no idea who it's going to be. The ending is just to give you the satisfaction of the puzzle box of what the original mystery was about this. But at that point, it's no longer necessary to really find out who he is other than to satisfy that element of the plot. The real antagonist is the environment that she's in and whether she can escape it. Because he's just another piece in this larger universe that is trying to, I guess, keep her locked into this cycle of violence and abuse.
I understand your comments. I'm just saying they could have done more with it.
You're entitled to your opinion on it. I'm just saying for me, I think that was the point.
I was going to say one thing too about what you said about the ending. What it reminded me of is the end of Vertigo, which is a movie I've always wanted to love more than I do. And I think one of the reasons why I don't love Vertigo is because it all builds up to that minute and then the ending happens so fast. It's like, I swear the movie isn't even over before the credits start rolling. Like the thing that happens in the Vertigo, which I won't spoil, happens within like 20 seconds of the movie ending. And that's kind of what happens here. Once everything wraps up, it's so fast.
It's a 67-year-old movie. You can spoil the ending.
Well, it takes place, the ending in a big tower. Somebody falls off the tower. It happens in like 2 seconds, and the credits come on. Directed by Alfred Hitchcock. So in this case, somebody falls out a window, and it's such a quick wrap up. I'm like, for a movie that took its time with everything else, that's odd to me, but feels a bit rushed.
That's fair. Let's move to classicness, though. This is a nuanced category having to deal with how well the film has aged or not. Was it ahead of its time? And many other categories or factors such as those. And so this category starts a slight bit higher as a median point as a result, because we felt that it is easier to take points off for things that have aged poorly, because frankly, we don't allow a lot of things in society to age with grace anymore. Take, for example, my co-host. I give him quite a bit of crap about being an old guy, an old fud on this show. But it is less difficult to...
My hair may be white, but I at least have it.
I did it by choice. I took this off by choice, my friend.
By the way, if you bend down, just bend your head down slightly. Doesn't the shape of where his hair was look like South America?
That's everybody's hair shape, isn't it? It all goes like that.
It kind of like tilts off more towards the west.
Yeah, well, as a fellow receding hairliner, yeah, I understand.
For anybody on audio right now that is completely lost on any of this, you can go check this out on YouTube at any point, and
feel free.
It's bookmarked at the Classicness mark, so you can find that completely. But that being said, our baseline is at a starting 6, because it is easier to take points off than it is to add them on, at least in theory, or that was our working theory. In practice, that may not have been always the case. But because the category lives in the gray, we turn to our senior nuance correspondent, Dana.
All right. Starting at the 6, I'm going to give it 2 points for just the fact that the female lead of this film is the one who's exhibiting the most power throughout. She controls the dynamic. Classicness, I'm going to give it another couple of points up, because I think this film could be done now, and it would be. But where I'm going to go back a point and a half is as follows. The treatment of sex work, which in 1971 was rather progressive. But it kind of, she's never punished morally for her situation, which is, okay, yeah, it's progressive.
I was going to say, she doesn't necessarily need to be.
But that's how it was treated at that Or for
Okay,
the
but that
period
would have
before
been
then.
rooting it in the past. The point is has it aged well? And so that's...
Okay, you're not. Just thank you for interrupting me. I appreciate it. Let me finish.
I'm trying to intently listen.
But in this particular case, it's all about. It's kind of like this trope that the only people who go into this industry are because they have no choices or because they're damaged psychologically. I think that's one of the things that's come out now more commonly is that there are women, and for that matter, men, who do choose to do this work necessarily because it can be rather lucrative. So I don't think it's necessarily, I think it falls into this trap of being patronizing about it. So I'm going to give it a half point down. So I'm at an 8.5 overall.
I take your points well from the standpoint, one area where it would change in a modern description, if you were to remake this, you would have to include almost the capacity to explore something like an OnlyFans, because escorts feel less like an accessible thing for the average person in a way that I think in 1970s New York, there was a little bit more of an accessibility. It was a little more underground, but you knew how to get access to it. I don't feel like you could do a Google search and find an escort place quite in the same way today that you could. But you can definitely go searching around on OnlyFans, and people pay a lot of money for the voyeurism and the experience and other things that are afforded by them. And there's a great amount of transfer of wealth from men in this country, particularly, to the women of OnlyFans. With that being said, go ahead.
Let me just point out one thing, which is I understand that I have not done criminal defense work for a number of years, but I will point out one thing, which is I would disagree. I think that there are places that you can look, and this still is very prevalent. It tends to be more upscale. I think it tends to be more financially. The average Joe is not going to be, but
thank you for now agreeing to my exact point.
People with more wealth
yes.
are still going to be able to find this.
Yes, people with wealth. But what I'm talking about is this is out-of-towners and the average business guy. And what? Yes, if Tiger Woods wants an escort, Tiger Woods can find an escort. That is blatantly apparent. But the point is I cannot, on my own, do a Google search and find myself a lady of the evening for my own satisfaction. Whereas I can log on to OnlyFans and there are more than enough people wanting to take my money to look at their stuff.
Let's put it this way. There still is a place called, is it Backpage? That still exists?
They took out a lot of that stuff.
And Reddit.
Yeah, but Reddit is very limited.
Yeah, it still is there.
There's stuff on Reddit. What I'm saying is your ability to find escorts via Reddit is not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that being said, I think the movie has changed a lot, because I agree with you that if you're going to recreate or redo it, the Bree character has to be like an OnlyFans model, quote unquote, air quotes. A lot of the people I have seen on there, and yes, I have looked through OnlyFans, which is why some of my knowledge is a little bit experiential here. They do not seem like women who are of lower means, per se. And a lot of them make decent money. Not even, even the people just starting out seem to make quite a bit of money in subscriptions and whatever else if they know how to sell themselves or at least do some marketing. And so, yes, I think the dynamics and the economics of this type of story have changed, and it's the one area that I would say is a drawback on this. That being said, socioeconomic issues of cycles of violence and trauma among women and their dealings with men is still universal and prevalent, and probably to a degree more socially conscious, or we are more socially conscious about this than we were in the 70s, especially after Me Too. So with all of those factors in, the timelessness and the cycles of violence and whatever else, I had this at a 9.
I know what I want to say about the way the movie talks about sex work. I just want to make sure I hope I can say it right.
There's no right or wrong, but that's why there's editing, Scott. Okay.
I think for most of the movie, I think it does an interesting and good job at showing the inner workings of her mind as to why she does what she does and the way she feels about it and the way it makes her feel in control and numb, as we said. She says that too. Why she, as a contrast to her discomfort when she's with John. Where I think the movie kind of almost takes away all that progress. I know it's a crazy character saying it, but when the movie at the very end puts forth the idea that her sex work is predatory and she's responsible for unlocking the bad parts of his mind, I understand that he's not that he's crazy, but I'm just saying I find that just the idea that that's in the movie did not age well, and I think people will misunderstand that. I think and think the movie's trying to say that because people can get easily offended by movies nowadays. So I'm just talking about in terms of how like it holds up, I guess, in that case.
I think you have a lot more chat line and online discussion trauma than either of us do.
Maybe
where
so.
You're used to the bad comments and the people mistaking movies and taking things out of it. All I would say to that is this is said by the crazy villain at the end. Why would you take that seriously at all? But
trying to rationalize his own horrible behavior.
Yeah,
true. It's true. Well,
I mean, that's not to discount. You clearly have had enough issues with other commenters in chat rooms before. I don't want to
trying to cover my ass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking to a lawyer and a would-be lawyer.
You know what? I'm not going to take as many points as I would have for that because you guys make a good point. I should not take what Cable says that much to heart. And hopefully Bree does not either. Okay, and then like as far as classicness, the more superficial stuff, like the movie aged, like it's charming in a way that it's like vintage, like the clothing, the way we've already talked about her apartment, which I find funny that's like considered a shithole when it's like the roomiest, nicest New York apartment that wouldn't even be affordable for anybody today. But mainly it was the prostitution thing. I will give it an 8 for classicness.
So that's an 8.5 average between the three of us. Let's move to rewatchability. Insert your own subjective test here. We usually start with our guest on this one. You can do whatever you'd like out of 10. How rewatchable is the movie for you, Scott?
Oh, do you guys do this? I had it as 2, like how likely to put it on and how likely to leave it on. Do y'all still do that?
Insert your own test however you want to do it.
I'll do that. I'll do that because that's what I saw. I think I did that before. Okay. How likely I am to put this movie on out of 5? I said 3, and the reason why is because I can sort of tell on my first viewing of this movie that probably would grow on me the more I watched it. Because movies like this that sometimes don't wow me on first viewings, but are kind of like take their time and are, kind of, you have to work on them a little bit more. I usually find that I really respond well to those movies on subsequent viewings. That's just the way I work. So I said a 3. Definitely a slower burn, but probably it'll appreciate on future viewings. And the other, like how likely I am to leave it on, I guess a little higher, 3.5 out of 5, because 3 you have to like select it, and then 3.5 I just stumbled upon it on Turner Classic Movies. Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll see what's going to happen. Get to watch a great Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland. Yeah. So 3, 3.5, 6, 6.5 total.
Why don't you go ahead, Dad?
All right. For me, it's just right down the middle. It's a 5. Okay. Will I rewatch it? Yes, I'll rewatch it at some point. I'm going to have a real hard time getting my wife to watch this film. Wow. Because invariably what it'll be is about a third of the way the film, she'll be like, what's going on? I don't understand. What and she's not going to like it. And so therefore my opportunity to watch it is going to be me by myself. Again, it's just, I'm just not going to do it. And okay. So 5 is about where I am.
I mean, that's fair, but none of the women in our family seem to like movies where they're not immediately spoon-fed to you. Anything where it is non-linear or there's like some... Which puzzles me, because we supposedly as a family love all these mystery movies, but the plot isn't revealed until the end. But the amount of questions you get, and I am so fed up by it. If a director doesn't immediately reveal a plot line, if he's holding back, just wait. Continue to watch the movie. If you needed that plot detail, they would show it to you. If you don't need it, then don't worry about it. The movie will show you at the point in which you need to know. Just go with it. Surrender to the movie. But none of my sisters or my mother can seem to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that being said, I actually agree with you, Scott, that I think that this is a movie that I enjoyed a lot on the first watch, but I was so invested in what was going to happen that I probably missed 50% of what was actually going on. I think this would be a much richer second watch, and so I'm very much looking forward to that. If I'm to try and put the objective spin on this, I think that there are a lot of people that would enjoy the movie, even though it is a little bit slower. It doesn't have the issues with... I don't feel like it looks like an old movie. It doesn't look like some of the blockbuster tech 80s movies that feel a little bit more clear and crisp. Like, this does have a 70s level filter to it that feels a little grittier, that they haven't worked out some of the differences in filmmaking techniques and such. But I don't think that it feels so estranged to the average person that if I decided to put this on, that they're going to automatically recoil. 2, I think that the public right now has an appetite for conspiracy. And so to put something like this on there that is a little bit more of a slow burn, that you can kind of invent your own stuff. That's why puzzle box TV shows are as successful as they are right now, because you have these things, these fan theories or whatever else to draw upon. So to hold back and have this kind of a reveal towards the end feels very much like the thrillers of the 90s that were passed around like word of mouth. Oh, you have to see Seven, or you have to see The Usual Suspects because it's got this big twist. The Sixth Sense was word of mouth like that. I think that you could convince people to watch it multiple times to work out all the theories and different things that could be in here. I'm going to give this a little bit of an optimistic objective 7. And so that means that our average here is going to end up being a 6.17 between the three of us. Moving to audience score, Dad, I have to give us some bad news. I went and looked around, and I thought this was an anomaly last week for Ace in the Hole, but Google has removed their entire scoring system from view. Like, you cannot see any scoring for any movie from average viewers or whatever else. Their rating system on Google has been completely scrubbed. Completely. We can't use it anymore. So we're having to move to using IMDb in relation to Rotten Tomatoes. Therefore, for this movie, it was a 7.1 IMDb score and a 79% from Rotten Tomato users, giving us a 7.5 average. So to repeat the categories, we had a 6 for Legacy, a 7.33 for Impact and Significance, an 8 for Novelty, an 8.5 for Classicness, a 6.17 for Rewatchability, and a 7.5 for Audience Score, giving us a final total of 43.5, and currently placing it on our list, tied at number 196, with a Best Picture winner from the 60s. Do you want to venture a guess?
West Side Story.
We have not covered that yet, but that would have been a good guess.
My Fair Lady.
That is right. My Fair Lady. Interesting bedfellows.
Yes.
Yeah.
A woman taken out of her social circle and removed from the gutter is a bad thing versus the woman taken out of cycles of trauma is a good thing.
Yeah. Both like accompanied by a very like quiet man who just stands there and looks at her.
And excellent scores for both.
Yes.
Yes.
But that being said, if you have any commentary for us, good, bad, or otherwise, you can message us at RonnieDuncanStudios.com/Gmode Podcast. You can find us at any of our socials at Gmode Podcast, or you can email us at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Let's move to some quick remaining questions for this film. This is one that occurred to me almost immediately, but given the nature of how Cable dies at the end, did he intentionally jump or did he just fall?
His ass jumped.
Who the fuck cares? He's
I
dead.
care.
He's a piece of shit.
I care because it was weird, but he definitely jumped. That man jumped. He was
Okay.
cornered and he jumped.
Maybe because, obviously the most important thing for him is not that he is involved in these crimes, but that he's going to lose his position or status within the company.
I think it is a significant difference with whether he fell, where it's accidental and he doesn't get. Basically, you don't get any satisfaction over the conclusion of the movie. Whereas if he intentionally jumps out the window to his own death, he realizes that he has no way out and that they've caught him, and that's essentially the consequences of his actions. He has this choice or he has the other choice. He can go to prison for the rest of his life and be disgraced and whatever else, or he can die. Those are his two choices. And for him to have to make that split-second decision, I think to me brings home that he actually had to pay for his crimes as opposed to he just accidentally got himself out of it. So I think it is a big deal. But all right.
I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it would be directed the way it was if they were trying to tell us that he fell. Does that make sense? I think he jumped.
I thought so too, but I think it's left ambiguous enough that you could draw your own conclusions. I think it's a good discussion point. Moving to question 2. How were Cable and Klute getting access to the phone lines to record Bree?
They knew how. It's not that hard.
Okay.
Tell us.
This is two children not from the 70s and such asking questions
It's not
about
that hard.
Okay.
We need to watch the conversation.
I know if you have technological savvy at the time, it was not that difficult to be able to tap a phone line.
Okay, you've now repeated that multiple times. You need to explain what you're talking about.
I can't, because I can just tell you that the FBI managed to do it. Everybody was doing it. It was not that uncommon to tap phone lines. It's just a matter of you had to have the technical knowledge to do it. And it was not that difficult to do because of the prevalence of it. I can't explain it anymore.
Assuming that Klute has access to the wires or whatever as they're going into the building from his apartment in the basement, and that's why he took that specific location, because then he could tap the phone. It still doesn't explain how Cable was getting access to the phone lines and coming in or out or whatever else, unless he was the prowler on the roof.
That's the thing. I think because he is kind of coming and going as he wishes, I suppose. If it was a thing, he got into her phone and did whatever you do to tap it. I don't know.
Well, and the other aspect is he was getting stuff. So as Klute's recording, he's passing the recordings on.
All right. Final question for me. How long did Klute and Bree last together? I mean, she even insinuates in that final moment that she could be back next week and leave him.
I don't know.
The optimist in me would like to think that she survives and that she's able to stay out of her own way. But the pragmatist in me says absolutely not. The most they're going to do is a couple of months.
It depends on who insults her at the country club back in rural Pennsylvania.
Do you think he was in a country club? He's a cop who's now a private detective.
anyone in Pennsylvania, if they give her a weird hard time,
I suppose.
About her past. But I would like to think that that they work it out, but I feel so pessimistic saying it, but
I know.
If she stays in therapy, maybe not, but I don't know. She's really got some stuff to go on.
Every relationship brings baggage. Who knows?
Right.
Who has any clue how long anything will last?
Any Klute. He does seem to be
This is a podcast. You're supposed to give hot takes, not lawyer answers. Not everything is fucking it depends.
Okay, hot take. Oh, she's gonna be banging the neighbor next door, and he's gonna come home and fuck. What the hell do you want?
You changed Klute into a Shaggy song? Wasn't me. All right. Any remaining questions for either of you?
No, I was going to say one thing when you talk about the tapping thing. I like the shots or the image of that little reel-to-reel recorder. I like old gadgets like that. So I'm like, anything that looked like it would have been sold at a Radio Shack I'm into. So I like the shots of those.
I might have to explain to part of our audience what a Radio Shack is.
I don't think there are a lot of younger people listening to this show. And so,
okay.
I mean, I make some commentary occasionally, but the under 35 crowd, I don't think is listening to us talk about a 55-year-old film very much.
I think Radio Shack is like 1/20th of a Best Buy.
It had its own character and flair, having worked there. So, yeah, one of the few, the proud, I guess, the former Radio Shack employees. But hearing no other remaining questions, I want to thank our guest for being back with us for his third time. Scott, you are not currently scheduled to be back with us this season, but let people know again what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys had me. I have always wanted to see this movie, so I'm glad I had a reason to see it, because I've really been diving back into 70s stuff lately, so it worked out. The timing really worked out well. Anyway, I'm just hanging out on Twitter trying to make jokes. Yeah, you've got the link, or I already at Cole, Scott. Follow me. My letterbox is on there if you want to see what I'm watching. It's linked up on there. So
sounds good. Final thoughts for the week, Dad.
Finished the second episode of my own podcast. I did movie reviews of the two movies I saw this last weekend in the second episode, Pressure and Disclosure Day. So, if you want to check it out, it will. It's me pontificating, so maybe you want to listen, maybe you don't, whatever. But I did enjoy both films.
I need to see Pressure. I was wanting to, and I kind of missed it. I need to watch it.
I really enjoyed it. But, of course, as a military historian, I, of course, found a few flaws in their...
Fair enough.
Yeah, but whatever. Doesn't matter. It was still fun.
How was the Brendan Fraser Ike? Was that good?
It wasn't bad.
Okay,
I mean,
right.
It could have been worse.
Yeah.
Great reviews by Dana here.
No, I'm just kind of hard on Brendan Fraser sometimes, so I'm trying to...
I established my own rubric for assessing films, which I go through and I explain in my podcast, which
I'll check
one
it
of
out.
them is I rate on a scale of 1 to 4 whether it's fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Why 1 to 4?
Because I just did.
Because 4 is fine. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, and then, I have 5 categories and then I average them. And I give you an idea of where, if it's above a 3, yes, go see it. If it's below a 3, maybe. Depends on what you like.
I grew up with the 4-star system, so I'm all into it. I like the 4.
Okay.
I started watching Siskel and Ebert when they were on PBS.
Yep.
So because he
Reviews
does
out of
not do his own promotional work, seemingly at all, it's at Sidebar by DWD
Yes.
on YouTube. Moving on, final thoughts for me. As I mentioned before, I was very grateful to see 4 different first-time watches for me, this film being one of them. Ace in the Hole, our episode from last week, I felt was a really great first watch. Charade was a really great first watch. And while I still don't know if John Travolta is a good actor, A Civil Action was at least entertaining enough of a first watch that I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't think he's a likable character, but it was good to see Robert Duvall doing something again.
Yeah.
So, there you go. That being said, I didn't get to Disclosure Day yet, failing on my part, partly because, well, my Wi-Fi was out at home, and so I shacked up in the office all weekend and decided to play video games more than go to the movies. Which,
fair enough.
Whatever. That was my choice.
Yeah.
But the second episode of, or I guess by this time it'll be the third episode of season 2 of First Watch Rewatch will be out. It is on this feed, so no need to resubscribe or do anything differently. You can just find that by itself. And we are starting to put up some social clips as well, so if you want to catch anything that we're discussing on there. Again, this season we're focusing on the first season of The Good Wife, which finally started to, like, at least in episodes 5, 6, and then now we're going to start venturing a little bit further into the season. It's kind of found its footing and its identity. For me as the first-time viewer of that show, I'm starting to enjoy it a little bit more. The first few episodes, it felt like it hadn't found what the identity of the show was yet. So we'll see what else we can kind of get into, and then obviously the hijinks between Sarah Shea and myself, as we have every week. But if you want to catch that for some TV discussion, that would be a good thing to do. Those episodes drop on Sundays. Otherwise, that is going to do it for us this week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week, for our 318th episode, we discuss T2 Judgment Day from 1991, celebrating its 35th anniversary. Written and directed by James Cameron with William Wisher. Cinematography by Adam Greenberg. Music by Brad Feidel. Editing by Conrad Buff, Mark Goldblatt, and Richard A. Harris. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Robert Patrick. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or TikTok at the handle at @GMOPodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.